Hi, my name is Eric Hosto.
I'm Vicki Humphrey.
My name is Jeff Otto.
And I'm Danny Patterson. We are 4 of over 20 investigators that work for Maune, Raichle, Hartley, French, and Mudd.
Many of our investigators, like myself, have previously worked in the trades. I used to work as a plasterer. We know firsthand where many of the asbestos products were because we used them.
We will schedule some time to come and sit down with you in your home and get to know you and your family. We are there to gather information that will build your case. This process is very informal, and we know oftentimes you don't feel great. We always want you to be comfortable.
One of the first questions people ask after they're diagnosed with mesothelioma is, where or how could I have been exposed?
We are here today to give you a better idea of the role of the investigator in helping you determine that answer.
Some of you may know exactly where you could have been exposed. Others have no clue.
Our job is to figure out all the possible places and companies that may have contributed to your exposure.
Typically, exposure comes from 4 different categories: exposure while serving in the military, exposure from your job, exposure from things you may have done in your personal life, such as home repairs, and lastly, exposure from a family member who may have worked around asbestos.
Most people who served in the military are now aware of the exposure risk. For example, most men and women who served in the Navy are well aware that ships were covered in asbestos. The Navy used a lot of asbestos products because of the fire retardant qualities.
But all the branches of the military use asbestos. We have records of all the bases across the country and can help you determine where your exposure occurred.
The next area where exposure often happens is your job. Because asbestos was used so prevalently, many people have exposure from their workplace. This includes occupations such as electricians, plumbers, auto mechanics, construction workers, pipe fitters, insulators, miners, and shipyard workers.
Through our years of experience exclusively handling mesothelioma cases, we've built a database of thousands and thousands of products. We'll work with you to help you identify as many of those products as we can. Often people are surprised to learn how many companies are responsible for their exposure.
The same thing goes for exposures in your personal life. If you ever did any home improvement projects, like replacing ceiling or flooring tiles, or patching drywall, those jobs could also have exposed you to asbestos.
Or if you're a car guy and like to work on your own cars and change brakes and clutches, we call that shade tree mechanic work. That's when you and your buddies are outside in your garage working on each other's cars on the weekends. Those brakes and clutches had asbestos for many years.
For women, one area of exposure is from cosmetic talc. If you ever used talcum powder, it often contained asbestos as well.
The last place that we look for asbestos exposure is what we call secondary exposure. This comes when a family member is diagnosed with mesothelioma, but they never worked around asbestos. For example, a wife is diagnosed, and while she never worked around asbestos, her husband was a pipe fitter. He would come home from work and, unknowingly, the asbestos fibers were on his clothing. She was exposed while doing his laundry.
Or from a son who helped his father doing that shade tree mechanic work, changing brakes or clutches on the family cars.
And always remember, we work for you. We're there to help you build the strongest case we can for you and your family.
We thank you for giving us a few moments of your time today.
Thank you.